Have you ever heard the saying, playing the victim? Why am I always the victim? Well, join me and we'll explore what this question really means to us. Hi, I'm Jen Joseph, here to release your confidence. Okay, now, I am somebody who once was in the habit of playing the victim. You know, it was the why me, poor me, oh my. Yep, I did, and I still do it occasionally. You know, it was a habit that I spent a long time cultivating, but now I catch myself as I begin the poor me. Yeah, and what I found actually, which is really funny, the last time it happened, I found that I wanted people to notice that I wasn't well. And I found in that state of mind, I was over-exaggerating what was going on within my body so that they would notice. Isn't that strange? I didn't want to be seen as vulnerable, but I wanted to be seen as a victim. You know, there's an old saying that says you can't be wrong and strong at the same time. And funny enough, I'll tell you what happens here when you think you're wrong and strong, and why it's important that you recognize that you can't be wrong and strong. When we are wrong, we are literally weakened. Our minds cannot think straight. Our emotions are dominated by the base emotions, the lower emotions, you know, the sadness, the sorrow, the grief, and so on. And those emotions, they weaken us. They don't give us strength at all because they tend to shut us down. And even in our minds, when we're doing the same thing, we're tending to shut down the mind so it's no longer able to create and to innovate and to enjoy. The body itself produces certain chemicals that put us in a flight condition. So we're always ready to run. Only because there is no fear, instead of fleeing, we freeze. So we go into fear or fright. So we become hyper vigilant, looking out for instances that can put us in a potential victim situation. And you know, the worst part about that is then that we start to ensure that we find other situations to verify that we are being victims and vilify ourselves for wanting to be the victim. So it's not me, I don't want to be a victim, it's just that the whole situation around me is creating a victimhood within me because everybody's against me. You know, I remember I was having a conversation with somebody and they said, they're all plotting against me. And I said, but what evidence do you have? And the person had to then build up a scenario to ensure that her evidence could be strong. Now, unfortunately, no matter what the person did, the evidence didn't match up to the statement. But the emotional state that she was in did. It weakened her. So now she couldn't think beyond where she was emotionally and couldn't see anything other than that state because the person themselves needed to justify that state. Now, not everybody does this consciously. I mean, I was able to do this because I've worked on myself for years to get out of that victimhood. There is a state when you are a victim and, you know, people just being deliberately hurting you and, you know, you've not known what to do or how to respond. And so because of that delay in knowing what to do and how to respond, they have been able to hurt you. But then there comes a point where you become so accustomed to it that that's your expectation that people will hurt you. And so you look out for those situations, which they call hypervigilance. And because you look for those situations, you attract those situations because you see nothing other than situations where you can be hurt. So how can we really get past that and move into a state where we can enjoy life? Now, for me, I got to a point where, and this is in every situation where we change, this is true. Enough was enough. I was not enjoying life. I could not enjoy life. I was getting sicker and sicker, because that's what it does to you. When, as your mind and your body becomes weaker and weaker, listen, you're killing off brain cells, literally killing off brain cells. You're putting yourself into a state of early dementia. You're shutting down your circulatory system, and so you're literally killing off your organs too, because the less and less blood supply your organs get, the less they can function. You know, and you put yourself in a state of what is called atrophy, death, early death. You look at some of the people around you who they are being victim for years, and when you look at them, you can see their skin has a certain pallor because there's a lack of blood going to it. You know, their bodies tend to be ill or weakened all the time. They don't smile. There's no joy in them. In fact, when you're near them, you feel sapped of all your energy. So victimhood will do that once we've taken it to the point where it becomes a habit. So it's important to understand how it impacts on you emotionally and physically. But if you can get to the point where you think, I can't live like this anymore, I don't need to be a victim, it's the wrong kind of attention that it gives me, you can make that shift. You can stop being the poor me one and be the happy one instead. Now, some people, granted, do enjoy that poor me one status because they think it's too much effort to give up being a victim. But when you can make that shift, and it's a painful one, it really is a painful one, because habits are things that are easy to make but hard to break. But when you can make that shift, oh my goodness, can your life be happy? Your life can turn around in such an amazing way. And I'm not saying it will happen overnight, of course not. But again, it depends on how urgent you are about enough being enough and how prepared you are to move through those emotions, because painful emotions don't like to surrender their position. Because if you ever checked in within yourself and you think, oh, but they've been protecting me. No, they have not. They have not protected you. They've harmed you. They have created within you an environment for degradation, for death, for decay, for isolation, for loneliness, for a lack of love. And the one thing that we as humans desire is to be in relationship with one another. Even if it's one or two people, we need to be in relationship. But when we're victims, the only people we can be in relationship with are other victims, because we can feed off one another, or perpetrators, because they can sustain our idea of victimhood. I don't know about you, but I don't like the idea of being so mentally weak that I can't respond. I like to know that I have a solution, or I have a response, or even if I don't have a response, that I have enough awareness that I can respond appropriately when somebody tries to put me back in that box of victimhood. What that takes is a willingness to leave that state. But when we leave it, to understand why we dwelt there for that length of time. We need to be willing and open to love, but also we need to be willing to wait to know people's character and not just surrender ourselves to anybody new who comes into our lives without knowing their character. Loving starts with knowing you, loving you, accepting you. I used to say, if so-and-so couldn't love me, why would anybody else want to love me? What I learned was that I had to accept me. I was an important person, not a victim, somebody who had the right to be and the right to express myself. I hope that you can get to that point where you feel that you are equally important and deserving of love. Why not take your notebook out and start to reflect on what you have done to shift and how you have felt when you recognized, I'm being a victim here. I'm entering into victimhood. There's no real threat around me. I just need people to see me as a victim. Make a note to yourself and then go back and examine it and see what you couldn't see earlier. What was keeping you anchored into that state? Okay, I'm Jen Joseph, here to release your confidence.